Well, if you're ready, I'm ready.
We're not. Yeah, I'm as good as it's gonna get.
All right. Here we go. Starting in 5, 4, 3.
Hello, my name is Robert Montague Renfield, and just like all these decent folks, I'm in a destructive relationship.
Hello and welcome. Welcome and hello. This is Wait You Haven't Seen. It's a show where we talk about movies, and specifically, we talk about a movie at least one of us has never seen before. I'm your host, Travis, a.k.a. TV's Travis. This is episode number 229, and our movie this week, 2023's Renfield, because we are in week 3 of Cage-A-Palooza. It's all Nick Cage all month, and joining me, because he got to see it and made me wait like 8 months, it's JF Duval. JF, how you doing?
Hello. Oh, I'm doing okay. I'm doing fine. It's all right.
You have delighted in making me wait this long because it was before the movie came out. It hadn't hit theaters yet, and I get a message from you saying, "Hey, I want to plant my flag for Renfield for this year's Cage-A-Palooza. If no one else has taken it." And I was like, "No one has." And then after I said yes is when I realized he's going to go see the movie in the theater before I can, and then I'm going to have to wait. And he did. And well, it was tough. It was really hard waiting 8 months or so, or however long, 6 months to watch this, but also I wanted to avoid like knowing anything about it before I went in to see it.
Well, the good thing is that this is a Nicolas Cage movie, so it didn't get a lot of like people weren't trading spoilers or trying to like avoid spoilers like it's a Mandalorian episode.
Yeah.
So it's not like this hit the theaters and people were trying, oh man, wait for the after credit scene. Like no one cares about that. Like so it's easy to avoid any spoilers. But yeah, no, I've been seeing you do Cage-A-Palooza for a couple of years now, I think, and there's a very limited amount of Cage movies that I really need to see and enjoy. You were kind of hitting most of them. And I saw the preview for that, and I went, "No, this is. I got to talk about this because this is gonna be. If it sucks, it's gonna be great to talk about how much it sucks, and if it doesn't, it's gonna be great to talk about how great it is. But if we're really lucky, it's gonna hit that sweet Nicolas Cage spot. And you know what? I think it did.
I agree. I mean, there are certain times where you see a trailer for a movie or you hear a concept for a movie and you just know, I know what I'm getting into. Like I can prepare myself for what this, I can prepare myself to be ready to like just take in whatever this is. It could be good. It could be bad. Like you said, I'm reminded of Kevin Smith talking about when he pitched his movie, Zack and Miri Make a Porno. Mm-hmm. He was talking to, and I think it might have been the Weinsteins back when he was still working with them, but he pitched the title, and they were just like, "All right, let's do it." And he goes, "Don't you want to hear the elevator pitch?" And they were like, "I mean, the title kind of tells us what the movie's going to be." And he goes, "Oh, that's fair. All right." And then he made that movie. Whether you liked it or not, like he pretty much got it based on the title. And that was sort of when I heard Nicolas Cage playing Dracula in Renfield, I was like, well, I'm in no matter what. And now it's just a question of what do we get? And this was a lot of fun. Now, first of all,
oh yeah,
if you've made it this far,
we played Cage Roulette, and I think we won.
Yes. Be prepared because we are going to talk all about the movie. So if you haven't seen it yet and you don't want anything spoiled, come back to this after you've had a chance to see it. It's streaming right now on Peacock. But here's the thing. With this movie, there isn't anything to really spoil.
No.
Because it's not that type of movie.
No. As far as the storytelling is concerned, it is paint by numbers. Mm-hmm. You are going to see this movie because you're going to go enjoy some performances more than anything.
Yes, it's you're going in for the cheese. There's a Nicolas Cage for me, and the reason that I started doing this on the show back in year one and just do it every year, is he's such an interesting actor because you kind of never know exactly what you're going to get from him, but you always know sort of what you're going to get from him at the same time. Like, you know, he's going to make some choices, but you're never entirely sure what those choices are and if they will work or not. Like, sometimes he can make those choices and you get just the gloriously over the top performance like Castor Troy in Face Off, where he's just chewing scenery like it's going out of style. And other times the choices get made and you get something like Drive Angry, where you're just like, what happened here? Or even last week's movie, which last week I talked about Jiu-Jitsu, which wasn't great, but like I don't know what thought process he went through or if there was any, but it just felt like they needed to go further with him. Like, he's supposed to be playing the crazy old hermit man, and he never really got to that point for me.
My theory about Nicolas Cage is that he very much sees himself as an artist in this, and in the sense that he will play the role to the best of his abilities, but what the variations aren't a variation in the quality or effort he brings. He always brings 110%. Oh yeah. But whether he's trying to paint a Picasso or he's trying to do some Bob Ross stuff, or he's going more into a Ron Brown, like the brush he's bringing is going to change depending on what kind of artistic movement he's into at that time. Yeah. And that's the gamble. That's the Nicolas Cage gamble.
Right. Because you're either getting Lord of War, which I think is a fantastic performance, and I think the movie is really strong, or you get Season of the Witch, which little less so. It was just kind of there.
It's still he still invests himself into performance. It's just not a performance that matches with what the movie was trying to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can never you never really can claim Nicolas Cage phones it in. Like, he is always present 100%, and he doesn't take on projects he's not committed to in some way, even if it's just I need money and I'm gonna do 6, 7, 8, 10 movies in a year. Like, he's still committing to every one of them that he says yes to.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think at this point in Nicolas Cage's career, if you don't get the Nicolas Cage that you needed for your movie, then it's on the director's fault. Like, it's on his head. Like, you should be able to communicate, like, okay, this is the movie I'm making. Does it accommodate a Nicolas Cage, or am I going to be like, am I bringing a wild card into like a well-balanced game of Jenga?
Yeah.
Like, am I giving my turn at Jenga to pull the piece of wood to a ferret, or am I going to do this in a calculated manner?
That's very true. And the thing with something like this is it's a role like Nicolas Cage has. So they filmed, or they set it in New Orleans, and I think part of that was that I think they were filming there too, I believe, although it's hard to tell.
Okay, so there's a variety of possible reasons. First of all, if you're going to try to attract Nicolas Cage to a location to do something, New Orleans is probably the lowest hanging fruit. Like, doesn't he already have a mausoleum built there for himself?
Yes, he does.
I think the Nicolas Cage New Orleans relationship is already established enough that if you're gonna say, "Hey Nick, you want to shoot a movie? It's gonna be in New Orleans." You've already got like a lot of the groundwork done.
Yeah.
That being said, it is one of the least New Orleans movies I've seen set in New Orleans.
It doesn't make the city go back character, does it?
No, not even a little. You see a couple of places that are, obvious tourist attractions from New Orleans, but like they don't make the obligatory, well, it's Mardi Gras this time of year. Like, they don't do all the normal stuff that you see, like whenever there's a movie set in New Orleans. There's none of that. Oh, we're going to the French Quarter now. Like, none of those typical tropes.
Yeah.
It's in New Orleans because it's in New Orleans, probably because New Orleans and vampires is kind of cool, but also like catnip for Nicolas Cage.
Probably a little bit of that, I'm sure. But this just feels like it was a tailor-made role to offer to him. I know he's a big fan of Nosferatu, and like vampire movies and Dracula in general. So I think he probably wanted to play this role at some point, and he gets to do it here, and he gets to kind of incorporate all sorts of different versions of Dracula into one movie too.
Doesn't Nicolas Cage, didn't he have like a list of 4 roles he wanted to hit? One of them being Superman, one of them being Dracula, and 2 others I can't remember.
I don't remember the other 2, but I know Superman was one of them for sure. Yeah. And
so
and
I mean, this is a good way of getting him to hit the Dracula one.
Oh yeah, well, because I know he was a big fan of Christopher Lee's Dracula, the Hammer film Dracula, because I remember reading about that when I actually, it was 4th season of The Witch, because they were both in that. So that was kind of a thing for him. But like, also I'm pretty sure, and I did not get a chance to fully check this out, but I'm pretty sure Cage was co-producer, executive producer of Shadow of the Vampire. I don't know if you remember that movie. It came out around 2001.
Oh no, I remember it, not because I saw it, but because I know it existed.
Yeah, which is a decent movie, and it's all set around the filming of Nosferatu, with John Malkovich playing.
Wait,
F.W.
no, I
Murnau.
take it back. I did see Shadow of the Vampire. I did see it, but
Yeah.
that was 20 odd years ago, and I was drunk.
I love the Willem Dafoe in it playing Max Schreck. I thought he was great, and it's John Malkovich, and I always enjoy John Malkovich. But I believe Cage produced that or co-produced it or something, because it was a thing he was all about at the time. So
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage, producer. Okay, so like it was a thing. He likes this story a lot of Dracula, and what's kind of fun about this particular movie, Renfield, is it's sort of a sequel to 1931's Dracula, in some ways, because you've got in the book, Renfield is much older, right? He's, what is he, like close to 60, I think, when they encounter him in the asylum.
Oh, that's a hard one, because old when Bram Stoker wrote Dracula and old today are two things. So today's 60 was that times 40.
Fair,
So
but he's
speak,
older. He was older than
Nicholas Hoult.
Yeah, and in the 1931 Dracula film, the actor who played Renfield, whose name escapes me at the moment, but he was around the same age. He was kind of early 30s. So they sort of kind of built off of that, and I loved the opening to this movie, where he, because it's using the trope of our main character narrating his story. Yes. And then we get kind of the little flashback thing going on, where he's telling you a little bit of the background of what went on, and they took shots from the Bela Lugosi Dracula and inserted Holt and Cage into them. Yeah, and I got a kick out of that.
To the point where it felt, I wasn't sure at first if they just they hadn't just reshot it, but. That I'm usually not a fan of narrations like that. It needs to be a specific type of movie, and I think comedies usually handle it better, because in a comedy you don't necessarily want to have subtle exposition. Like, you want to know what your premise is and what your rules are from the get-go, so you can get to the gags and the funnies.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Like, for the most part, narration like that in a movie, it ends up more often than not being, the Blade Runner narration, where it doesn't need to be there. Or Dark City was another one that had that voiceover, because a lot of noir tried to use it because it was
I was gonna say maybe noir gets a little bit more of a pass because that is part of the DNA of the genre, but again, it needs to be done so much better. And I find that in noir movies, compared to like in Renfield, it's very much there to tell you what the rules are, move the story along, do a bunch of things that would be considered lazy in screenwriting normally. While in the noir genre, it is used in that way, but also to give you the unreliable narrator perspective of the main character. And that is part and parcel of the noir genre. Whereas in Renfield, it's not necessarily the case.
No, but I liked the use of it here. And again, just giving us those moments in the beginning that are pulled right from the movie, from the old movie. And like, I love I don't drink wine, and all that kind of stuff was just a fun way to set things up and just give you like, all right, now you know what you have an idea of what the rest of the movie can kind of be like, in a way.
Yeah, there's your appetizer. Now you know what to expect as far as the flavor profile for the rest of the meal.
Yes, except for the gore level, which was ratcheted way.
It was not great in any way. Like, the word good special effects, there's a lot of digital splatters. Fine, but also gorier than expected.
Yeah, I use the term cartoonish gore a lot. I enjoyed a movie. It was Punisher Warzone. Very few people actually saw it. It came out. It had Ray Stevenson playing Frank Castle. It was like 2000, I want to say like 2011 or something. It ended up being kind of a lower budget thing, but it was real. It was hard R-rated, very gory, but like it was over the top violence, and it's a Punisher movie, so there's going to be violence in it anyway. So they just went for it. They had like, all sorts of stuff, but it was cartoonish in its nature because of how over the top it was. But this was cartoonish not only in its nature, but also in kind of the look of it. Like the CG blood splattering everywhere looked almost animated, like cartoon animation at times.
Yeah, and there's a lot of scenes, like the battle scene in the courtyard, which is probably the bloodiest scene of all. The two main characters walk out of there with nary a stain of blood on them.
Yeah, I know.
Which in of itself is its own gag.
That's the one that had the gag where he grabs the guy by the wrist,
rips off the arms.
That was, again, it's so ridiculous that I loved it. I loved every like they used the rule of threes, and they had the oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Like three different people with it, and then he's just swinging those arms around. But what got me on that, it was enough that he was, beating people up with a set of one dude's arms. But when he used them like a couple of spears and pinned those guys to walls, I was like, okay, all right, we've turned a corner.
And one of the things that I found, especially now, I've seen it twice. So I saw it once in theater when it came out, just to make sure it got the jump on you. And I saw it again 2 days ago, on Thursday.
Okay.
So that I could have a fresher memory of it. But one thing that kind of struck me, obviously the people don't get bloodstains on them all that often, considered the amount of gore, but also the number of time Renfield is shocked at his own strength, even though he's been doing this for a decade. It's like, oh, saying, why are you surprised now? You knocked someone's head off, and like in your first fight scene in the movie, and now you're surprised you can rip arms off. Like, you've been at this, what's up.
He's been at it for like a century, and yet it's like every time is the first time he's done it, which is pretty impressive. I did enjoy the world they created for this, because it's absolutely ridiculous, not real world at all, with the way like literally the entire police department is on the take except for one cop.
I don't think what is it, his name, Kyle. I don't think Kyle was on the take. Didn't seem like it was sharp enough.
I mean, maybe not on purpose, but he's sort of following anyway. But it was the like that, or the opening fight scene you mentioned where he knocks the guy's head off. Like, that assassin is just completely ridiculous. Made for a good joke, though. I did like the joke when they cut to what is it, Johnny or Tony, in the car.
Yeah, I think it's probably Tony, because
Teddy
Lobo,
because he's credited as Tedward Lobo, which is fantastic. But it did make for that was a great joke when he's talking to the guy on the phone, and he mentioned, because the assassin's name is Apache Jim. He's like, well, you tell him it's racist. Have you seen what that guy does?
And It is like that did strike me because they mention, oh, like he's probably like the Lobos probably send like an assassin after us, and you expect, all right, there's gonna be some dude dressed in black like in a cat suit doing assassin stuff, and they send this super villain.
It's like a 7-foot tall supervillain.
Like this guy from like Spider-Man's backup rogue gallery shows up. Like,
Pretty much,
what is
yeah.
going? Like, what is this, Midnight Suns? What's happening?
I liked the reveal of it though, where he's beating up all the guys, and he's partway through, and he goes, "Wait, did you say an assassin was coming here?" And then just turns around, and the guy's there. There was good, like the comedic timing of some of these gags was really good.
Yes.
And I found out after the fact, I didn't recognize the name Chris McKay, the director, I didn't recognize the name, but looked it up. He started out as an editor, and then he worked on things like Robot Chicken. But he directed the Lego Batman movie from a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I really liked that. He was an editor on the Lego movie, and then he made the Lego Batman movie, The Tomorrow War, which I heard kind of mixed things about.
I mean, it's a Chris Pratt vehicle with time travel. There's no world in which I was going to go see that.
But I think that his comedic timing was really good on a lot of the gags that they did throughout this movie. That one.
Oh yeah, and going back to the narration, like some of the best narration bits are these one sentence narration observation about things, like when he gets back to his apartment and Dracula's waiting for him in there, and he just references the welcome mat.
That is now my favorite gag involving vampires can't come in unless they're invited, because I kid you not, I was cackling when that happened watching it, because it's his realization as he walks in and he just sees Dracula sitting there, and it's a shot and the camera pans down and you just see the welcome mat and it says, "Welcome, come on in." And he's like, "Oh shit." He messed up and he knew it right there. It was that was perfect. And
it's a good way of hand waving the thing so you can have your scene without worrying about that little piece of mythos.
Yeah. Well, and then they use the joke again later when Dracula shows up at the support meeting, and it's the guy leading the support meeting saying, "Yeah, come on in." He's inviting him in. So like
which is normal. That's what you'd expect would happen at one of these things.
But in Renfield's kind of defense, he wouldn't he knows Dracula enough to know that he has to be invited in, but it wouldn't dawn. I don't think it would dawn on him that the welcome mat would be enough for it until after it happens. So it's kind of a gag that like I can buy, because if you think about it, he's doing the movie trope thing of like changing his entire life in a single day.
Yeah, he bought this while on the shopping spree.
Yeah, because he did the shopping spree. He bought clothes. He rented an apartment, cleaned it up, and painted it, and changed his entire wardrobe in the span of like 8 hours.
Yeah, I can't buy the paint. I can't choose the colors for the paints in in that time.
And he had every wall a different color too. Like the kitchen was bright green, and then it was orange out here, and so. But
he pimped that studio apartment.
I do like that trope though. That is such a tropey thing in like movies and television, where somebody decides they're gonna change their life around, and you get that montage. And like in this, it happened in a single day, and they never make mention of it whatsoever, because later that day
it's montage.
Yeah, and it's like later that day he goes to the police department to give his statement about what happened the night before at the Mexican restaurant. So it's still the same day. I like that, and I like not mentioning it. That to me is makes it funnier in an extra layered way. And so I totally bought that he wouldn't think about the welcome mat at all. He was just too much of a whirlwind of doing everything. So that one got me so much. There was a few moments in this that made me laugh pretty good. Okay. Where do you stand on, because we've talked about Cage a little bit, and we'll get to Nicholas Hoult, and I want to talk about them more. Not enough yet. But where do you stand on Awkwafina? Do you like her in things? Do you not have much of a background? Where are you on Awkwafina? Because she feels kind of
Here's the thing.
polarizing to me. Like people either really like her or can't stand her.
I think people are just. I think people are approaching her the same way they're approaching Nicolas Cage in a way that they have expectations that they should not have. And I'm not saying, because here's the thing: whenever she's in a movie, which hasn't been a lot of movies I've seen, but whenever she's in a movie, it's always at the end I go, oh yeah, she's an actress that exists. Like I forget her existence for the most part, but it's never because like the performance was necessarily forgettable or bad. But I think because they're different. I mean, and this is a comedy. Like she's working what she's got, but she is doing the Nicolas Cage thing of putting a lot of energy into it. She's definitely going for it. She's going for those scenes. She's not trying to shift the role into something else.
She has a style.
I think as far as this movie is concerned, if so, I haven't seen her in enough things to get a good impression of what that style is.
I think the reason I say that is because I haven't seen a lot of her in things, but like this character is a very similar character to what she did in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. She's playing almost the same character as in that. And I saw her in something. Now, I've heard that she, I think it's her, she had a show called Awkwafina is Nora from Queens that's supposed to be pretty good. And I find her funny. I think she's got good timing, and I think that she, like you said, brings a good energy. But I just noticed, like, as I was watching this, it felt very similar to the type of character, that very sarcastic and quippy character that she played in Shang-Chi. Now, that's not a bad thing, because I think it absolutely fit the tone of this movie 100% for me.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, it's not like typecasting was invented yesterday either. Some people are good at certain things. There's certain roles I wouldn't hire certain actors for, and some are better. Like, you hire George Clooney because you want a debonair, smirky, handsome dude. You don't hire George Clooney because you want necessarily high drama. Some actors, you know what you're getting because you're shopping that particular page of the catalog.
Yeah. Yep. I had no idea that she was in this until she showed up.
I had no idea she was in this until the credits.
So there was that.
She's just not someone that's on my radar all that much. But as far as her completing the assignment of the role of Rebecca in that movie, I think she did fine. Like you said, her comedic timing was good. Her energy was there. Her behavior, like if you go into like sort of cut out certain specific pieces of acting, when she's acting the wounded cop in Renfield's apartment, she does a good job. Like I've seen better actors do a shittier job of being wounded in movies.
Yeah.
Like just a moment trying to like not let go of her gun, so using it to prop herself up. She's trying to she does fine in this movie. I don't know. Maybe she sucks out elsewhere. I don't know.
What did you think of Nicholas Hoult in this?
I think he did great. I think he did fantastic. But then again, he did great because he was doing Nicholas Hoult things.
Did he sound like Hugh Grant to you, or am I crazy? Because I got like the voice felt like a Hugh Grant voice he was doing through most of the movie. And I don't know if it's just that I've heard him do other accents and other voices, like his accent. He's using an American accent in the X-Men movies when he's playing Hank McCoy, and when he was one of the War Boys he was completely different. He did a lot of screaming in that. But I got like that was just what he sounded like to me. It was good. I liked it quite a bit. But it just that was the thing that kept coming to mind. It's like, a little Hugh Grant going on with the voice.
I didn't pay enough attention to his voice to really judge. I was looking more at the energy he was putting into the character, like, and in that he does good. Like he overacts it, by about 5%. Just enough that you can say, oh, he's overacting, but not to the point where it's distracting.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Like
definitely.
there's a touch of caricature in it that I think works. Say it works in his role in Mad Max. It works in this. I think it would not work in other places. Then again, I haven't like seen his entire catalog, far from it. So
I haven't seen his entire, but I have seen him in quite a few things. And I do think one of the things I like about him is he's got some decent range. This is him getting to ham it up a little bit, go a little bit more, like you said, caricature, because the nature of the movie and the type of character that he's playing here, whereas he's a lot more reserved in the X-Men movies as Hank McCoy based on the character that he's playing.
I keep forgetting he played that.
Yeah, I mean, it's because all the fan casting for so long it's got to be Kelsey Grammer because of the voice. And I mean, he did it for 4 movies. He was Hank.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that you can sometimes forget, and I realized it in a couple of the action sequences in this movie, is he's not a small guy. He's like nearly 6'3", and he's decently well built. But the way, like, he carries himself very small and hunched over in this movie a lot as Renfield,
Yes.
especially in the beginning.
Which speaks to the character. It's a good way of portraying the eternal servant.
Yeah. But it's just it always impresses me when somebody can, because like you think of some of these actors that are that size. You know, he's maybe a little more slender than like your Chris Evans or Hemsworths or those kinds of guys, but he's that same height. He's got fairly broad shoulders, but I never think of him as being like an imposing figure, but he kind of is. Like he's definitely in good shape too, and so that works for the action sequences in this movie, which helps quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's rare that in Hollywood you can get a role if you're not built. Like it's the same way like Hollywood has a tendency to bring in beautiful people and just like give him a slight sexy scar and say, "Oh, he's hideous."
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's a
like
trope.
everybody's beautiful even when they're deformed.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember the movie. Yeah, the movie Beastly, which was supposed to, oh, you've got some sick tattoos and we're supposed to believe you're repulsive.
I don't remember that.
You got sick tattoos on your 6-pack abs? Oh, no.
But I think what he
Terrible.
did, what Holt did here that worked really well is the physicality of like when we, you know, he's knock-kneed and he's always kind of keeping himself small, that eternal servant. And because it's his movie.
And I think that's a bit of what I call Nicholas Hoult, you know, doing the Nicholas Hoult thing, is you can see a little bit of that in Warm Bodies. You can see a little bit of that even in Mad Max. Like as a war boy, like he's still, like he's good at playing someone that's subservient and has the body language of someone that's subservient.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely has pulled that off well in the past. I liked that we got to see him, because it's Renfield's story. And like I said, where it's sort of that pseudo sequel to the 1931 Dracula, we're following him and getting sort of a little bit of a peek into him. There's not a ton of depth in the character. You mentioned at the top of the show how it was very kind of paint by numbers in terms of the storytelling, and it definitely is. But, you know, we find out about his wife and child, and he gets a little bit of stuff to do there, but it's more of him trying to realize that he can stand up for himself and doesn't have to serve forever, even though that's what he was willing to do back then for whatever power he thought he was going to get. It's sort of that buyer's remorse he got for his deal with Dracula. It just took a long time for that to set in.
Yeah, and I do like that it's not one of those movies that they don't try to wedge in a cool excuse for him to do this. Like he didn't do it because his wife was sick and he needed the money to pay. Like no, and Dracula is 100% on the money when he says no, you did it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like you left them behind while you followed me through eternity. And they don't try to, you know, rose-colored glass that one.
No.
That is what he did, and it's part of his arc to accept and move on from that. And if I'm going to give the movie credit for breaking a little out of some of the cliches, that is something interesting they did with the character that I was expecting them to, the same way they fix a lot of things at the last minute. I was expecting them to fix that one too, with a little bit of a hand-waving storytelling.
Yeah, I was the same way. I felt like, okay, at some point we're going to get the tragic backstory of Renfield and why he did what he did. And no, it wasn't that at all. He just, and I like that. You mentioned how things get, my note was wrapping everything up like a sitcom episode at the end of this.
Oh my God, do they do that? But
like,
honestly, I forgive it because the results are worth it.
Oh yeah. Like when they're bringing out the mother of the Lobos, and it's
okay, well, I did not know that actress in particular was going to be in that movie, and I was delighted.
Oh, she's wonderful. I'm gonna butcher the hell out of her name, because
this is why I said that actress. I know, like, I have a visual of her, what her name is, how her name is spelled. I have a visual of her Twitter handle.
Yep.
And but I'm not gonna attempt it because I always mess it up.
I believe it is Shori Agdashlu.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Shori, I was comfortable with the surname. I didn't. I wasn't going to walk that tightrope.
But she is playing Bella Francesca Lobo, and I adore her. She has that presence. Part of it is the voice, right? She's got the voice that that just sounds like it was just a constant string of Camel cigarettes for like 50 years. And it's that smoky, husky voice that she's got. And it's like the second you hear it, you know, even if you don't recognize her or you don't know her name, you know who she is from that voice.
Oh, absolutely. And one day God will reach down from his heaven and call back his angel Morgan Freeman, and we will turn to Shuri as the new voice of cool narration. Absolutely. Because hot damn, she will deserve it.
Yes. And so she doesn't have a ton to do in this movie, but it was a delight. Like, that's the type, I love castings like that, where it's somebody who, they're not an A-lister, right?
They had her in for a day.
Oh yeah. But it's like, it's not an A-list cat, and it's not a stunt casting. It's not, bringing somebody in for a cameo, but it's like getting somebody who has a presence and a face or a voice that you recognize and just lends something else to that role. Like, you could really put just about anyone in the role of Mama Lobo in this movie, but her being that, it's the salt to the food to add that seasoning to just make it something a little bit better.
Well, I don't know if it's a little bit better, but again, like, and I think this is why this movie is kind of a perfect Nicolas Cage movie, is because, again, it is one of those things where the actor brings their own thing, and that flavors the story. Because I would have been equally satisfied if they would have brought in Kathy Bates.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no doubt in my mind that Kathy Bates, given a day of doing that character, would have done something incredible, but completely different.
Mm-hmm. Although now you
and that would have changed the flavor. Yeah, that role is cake, and the whatever incredible actress you bring to it is a different flavor. Are you having a strawberry cake? Are you having chocolate? It really depends on who you bring. The cake's going to be as delicious, but completely different. And I think that's the case here.
That is a great way to put that. And I adored
I am good
her.
at food analogies. Ask anyone.
This is true. I
ask
have heard
Amy.
Many of them. But yeah, she was a lot of fun. But when they're walking her out at the end, and it's Awkwafina and her sister, and that was that, like, wrapping it up like a sitcom moment for me, because I'm like, wait a minute, wasn't she on like a stretcher? Weren't they implying that they had killed her, and now she's just fine? Like, because they had the bucket of Dracula blood. So that's
specifically Dracula blood.
That's their MacGuffin to just fix everything at the end, and I loved that.
I love that when Teddy Lobo calls them Dracula powers, Renfield says, "I don't call him that." Like it gets him angry, but at the end he still has a picture of Dracula blood.
Yes.
It's like,
Yes.
fine, I'll lean into it. And is it me, or was there a not quite Batman 66 level, but oddly close level of labeling going on in this movie?
Yes.
There's a lot more objects being labeled than necessary.
There were a lot of
Like-
labeled objects and a lot of Easter eggs in those labels and name tags
Yes.
and things.
I did not need someone to tell me that the switch that turns on the shades. I didn't need shades to be put on that button. Like, that was unnecessary. But
No,
it's there.
But you know what?
And they make a point to show us.
I feel like that was labeled for Teddy, right? Like, Mom labeled that for him because Teddy's an idiot. And at some point,
in that case,
at
in that
some
case,
point,
I need
yeah.
a close up of Teddy's guns to see if it's in right gun and left gun.
Oh,
Because he
yes.
had two guns,
Of course he did.
like an idiot.
Teddy was a character that was just ridiculous. Ben Schwartz played him to perfection as just
Nailed it.
completely useless, but just a total nepo baby in the crime family of the Lobos, which, by the way, I like the crime family being the Lobos, and that's who Dracula kind of takes control of at the end. It's a nice one because it's one where, obviously, if you know the Dracula story, wolves are a big thing, so it's just a nice way to do that.
Yeah. And just like this is part of like the writing and directing that is subtly above average. Like, Renfield eats bugs to get in his power.
Mm-hmm.
But Teddy Lobo snorts a millipede
Yes.
because he sells cocaine and
Mm-hmm.
he's a cokehead. First of all, it's gross as hell,
Uh-huh.
but it is also subtly in character.
Yes.
Like, this is where he gets his power. That's his high. It's like, there's so many of these small touches in the movie that are easy to gloss over, but are actually kind of secret genius.
Yeah.
By the way, I wanted you to take a minute, and if you Google Renfield cast, you'll
Mhm.
notice that you get like the normal like the cast list, and you'll see that the first five, like, you've got Nicolas Cage face, Nicholas Hoult face, Awkwafina face, Ben Schwartz face, Shuri on a couch.
Yeah.
Then Jenna Cannell face, like, everybody's is a headshot except for her. She's on a luscious, wonderful divan. It's so good.
Yes. Oh, and all the better for it. I think that's perfect.
Yeah. Sorry for the listeners, but you'll have to get on a browser to see what I'm talking about.
It's worth it, though. It's worth it. Yeah. Teddy is just such a funny, like, again, useless character, but he's perfect in the movie, and it's great to have him be because this is a type of movie that's going to have the fight at the end where he's got to fight a dark version of himself, like, and so he gets the him and Teddy fight, which doesn't go on as long as I thought, and had quite the ending to it, with that X-ray
That little
shot,
X-ray shot.
which that started off, and I
There's a
thought I
lot-
knew where it was going.
There's a
but
lot going on in there.
It did not end the way that I expected. Let's put it that way. I'm gonna leave that for people to see for themselves.
Yeah, if it's worth pausing to see exactly what happens to this poor dude's anatomy.
Because it was like 3/4 of the way through it, and then I saw what was coming, and I'm like, oh no. Given what we've already seen in this movie, no. But yeah, that was great. And again, like, it's fun to see those two superpowered, and they were very different uses of it too, because Teddy's enjoying the hell out of having it, and whereas Renfield is so reluctant to use that power, although when he needs it, and him scarfing down that kid's ant farm was another one of those great gag
I
moments.
hope he gets a bit of power from sand also.
because he ate a lot of sand there, but that gag was another one of those great comedic timing moments where it was just like, because it caught me. I knew what was happening, but I didn't know what the payoff was, how they were going to display the payoff, and it was really good.
Yeah, well, when he releases all the bugs in the courtyard and gives that one ant to that kid for his anthill, which, by the way, if you know anything about ant, the ant he put in that anthill is dead.
Oh,
It got dismembered immediately.
Mm-hmm.
You don't smell like our ants, so you're dead. But yeah, you knew like, all right, something's gonna happen with those bugs for a reason. Like,
Yeah,
he's not suddenly PETA out of nowhere.
And then, of course, Nicolas Cage doing Nicolas Cage as Dracula throughout the whole thing. Like, it starts off with everything in the flashbacks, but then the fight at the beginning where he's fighting what has to be Van Helsing and, like, a priest.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Basically, the church,
yeah.
I guess.
So he's fighting that, and they do the protection circle, which becomes Chekhov's protection circle, because that's going to happen again later.
Of course.
But like that whole scene, and then of course they open the blinds and he gets burned. So then they're going, like, that makeup that they used was simultaneously really good, and you kind of mentioned sort of bordering on sort of the Batman 66 levels of kind of ridiculous. It kind of felt like that a little bit. Like, it was just weird enough where, like, as he's gaining his strength back, which apparently has taken him, well, we don't know exactly how long, but I've got to assume it's several decades, and he's still got like one ear that's hanging lower than the other on like the side of his head. And I guess it's to give us an idea of, like, because what is it Renfield says when he's dragging those bodies in towards the beginning into the hospital, that like their bank account is low, like the money isn't there. And so it probably just took a lot longer to get enough blood for him to eat. I don't know, but I liked the
what a set that is, by the way. Like, the empty IV, like, blood bags hanging around, like the backdrop, like it makes the Iron Throne look unintimidating.
It really does. They did not waste any design on, like, that was well designed, well put together set for his little lair inside that hospital.
Right.
I loved it. It was fantastic, and it ends up being the centerpiece of a couple of different scenes, which is good.
It's most of the kind of horror scenes, I would say, like the parts that are meant to be creepier, less more creepy than gory, happen there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good place for it.
Yeah, if you're going to do that, an abandoned hospital is perfect, because those are never a comfortable place to be, in my opinion.
Even unabandoned hospitals.
Well, fair. I liked that, and then I like how, he leaves that and gets his bright colored apartment, because that's, everything is brightly colored when Renfield leaves. It's the polar opposite of what he's been dealing with. But yeah, just Cage just going for it. And I guess I read that he filed his teeth down so that the prosthetics would fit better, and so that he wouldn't have that problems with enunciation that you get when you're wearing big fake teeth.
God, I hope he didn't.
So
painful and irreversible.
Yeah, I mean, if he did, that's some dedication. If not, then what they gave him were really good prosthetics and probably some CG extension to that, I gotta think.
Well, that, and also prosthetics nowadays are not as terrible as they used to be.
They are a lot better. Yeah, they do fit a lot better. The teeth looked great.
They take the whole thing, like, through his regeneration, does look pretty great. Like, from the moment he's burned to a crisp, which Renfield's like, "Master, are you okay?" No.
It's the perfect response. Yeah, I loved it. I loved all the different stages of it. You see him kind of slowly getting put back together. It was really cool looking.
And going back to the scene in the apartment, the amount of work Nicolas Cage does with his face without saying a word as he's listening to Renfield's excuses is freaking wonderful.
He is, and I heard this joke somewhere, and I've made it a few times, and I'm probably going to make it again next week. And when you hear which movie it is, you'll understand why. But somebody had made a joke years ago that they were like, if Nicolas Cage could undergo a surgery to turn him into a cartoon character, he would absolutely do it, like a Looney Tunes character. And I feel like,
I mean, it's not impossible that he is a Looney Tune character that underwent a surgery to pass as human.
He's like Judge Doom in Roger Rabbit.
Yes.
He's a toon, but he looks like a human being. Because you're right, he does so much expression with his face without saying a single word, and he's doing this under makeup too, which is even more impressive. Even the light
he
amounts of
manages
makeup.
he manages to be perfectly sarcastic without saying a word through makeup. It's like, tell me he's not a good actor. Like, yes, he's a specific actor, but he's not a bad actor.
No, and I will defend him as a good actor. I mean, number one, whether or not you put any stock in Academy Awards, he is an Academy Award winning actor. Like, other people have recognized his performances as good, but if you look at him in stuff like, Leaving Las Vegas, but one that I always bring up is Bringing Out the Dead. If you've seen that movie, he is fantastic in that. It's a Martin Scorsese movie. Came out in like '99, I think. It's got him and Ving Rhames and Mark Anthony. It's really good. So he plays a John Goodman's in it as well. He plays a ambulance driver in New York City that works like overnights, and he's having problems. But Cage is great in it. He's great in Lord of War. He can be a compelling actor and give you performances, but he can also really ham it up and really go for it, and sometimes not even understand what he's doing himself, like in the other vampire movie he did, Vampire's Kiss, where he's playing a person thinking they're becoming a vampire. And that one's great for me because his commentary track on the DVD, he's even saying, like, I don't know what I was doing in this scene at all. Like, I'm not sure why I did what I did here. That kind of thing. But, like, he's making choices and he does things and he does go over the top, but it's always to serve whatever he's doing in the movie. And I think it works most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even when it's ridiculous, I think it still can work. And this was one of those where he gets to be ridiculous, and he had to be fun to do this. He had to just had a blast.
What's great about it is that he is only a little ridiculous, but of most of the characters, he still plays it somewhat straight in a lot of places.
Yeah, and I think because it's everything around him is so amped up to an 11 in terms of just like the silliness scale, that he can come in and do this very over-the-top theatrical Dracula role and it not feel out of place, and it just works within the context of the movie. Because sometimes I think that's what happens to him, is that he is over here doing something and it doesn't fit into what the movie wants to be at times. Not always, but I've seen that at times. Whereas this was like, no, the movie was tailor-made to fit around him in this character, and the ridiculous look and these teeth, and like people aren't freaking out the second they see him with this pale skin, and like he's got kind of a blue look to him almost. And I guess on set the makeup made him look, the makeup director was saying that it was almost like a metallic look on set to the naked eye, but then the way they filmed it, it gave him this kind of almost iridescent glow. It was really kind of cool.
And that's one of the things that's interesting about how this was shot, is that it looks like Dracula is taken from a different movie. Like he never looks like he's completely supposed to be in the scene he's in.
Yeah, I can see that. And
I think that works. I think that was a choice.
Yeah, well, like a scene will be real dark or something, but like he will have a green or blue glow to him almost.
Mm-hmm. And he always looks like he's lit a little differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so you couple that with like just the teeth and the way he dresses. Like when he walks into that meeting, he's got his top hat and his cane, and he's very, very over the top because he doesn't fully like understand the world, because he just sort of lives off on his own. But I loved I loved the idea of him getting the thought of, wait, why don't I just take over the world? Like, I could do that. I'm Dracula. And it's sort of a thing that,
he's
like,
not just Dracula. He's a god.
yes. And what I liked about that is that also has that very much that kind of sitcom feel of like, oh, I've got a brilliant idea. I'm going to do this crazy thing. And then it not work, and they just tie everything back up to the status quo at the end.
But it's nice that he includes Renfield in it, like in his little plan where it's written Dracula, and it's like his little red yarn thing, and just right under his name and Renfield.
Oh, I loved that. That was another one of those that just it made me laugh. I couldn't help it. It was so good.
And I think it's one of those things that is great about the character. Like, there's not much layered into the character of Dracula in this. Like, he's very classic. Dracula is evil for evil's sake, drinks blood, violent, etc. And then there's this little drop of maybe being used to Renfield, maybe caring a little bit about Renfield, and being a little angry that Renfield wants out. I think that's cute.
And I think too, it doesn't overplay this card, but there is definitely that whole sort of abusive relationship going on between Renfield and Dracula. But it doesn't hit you over the head stupidly with it. But at the same time, you're seeing all the signs of it, and you're seeing, and that's that, you know, Dracula shows up at his apartment, is upset with him, and tries to play the victim card and make it about, because he's narcissistic. It's all about Dracula.
Of course.
And so, like, I really liked how that played out.
And I mean, you say they don't overplay it, but I'm gonna counter by saying that maybe that's like half the premise of the movie. So maybe they do play it a lot. I mean, there's a whole support group about it. So maybe
I guess it's less that they don't. Maybe overplay it isn't the right word, but it doesn't feel like it's. It feels like it's the story they want to tell about Renfield, and so it fits with the overall story of the movie.
Right. It's a Renfield story that mentions codependency, not a codependency with Renfield in it.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, the spotlight remains on Renfield and his development of evolution as a character. That includes codependency. It's not, here's a story about codependency, and as it happens, it's also Renfield.
Yeah. I mentioned Chekhov's protection circle. That was another gag that really got me at the end. Because it's so... It shouldn't work. There's no logical reason for any of that to actually work, but I like that she looks it up on Wiccan Tumblr. And that apparently it's just any white powder will work. So she made a protection circle out of cocaine. Because why not?
Listen, I didn't go to Wiccan Tumblr to double check if that was true or not. I'm taking the movie's word for it.
But like, in a different movie, that feels like a bad joke, right?
Right.
I can see a movie using that joke and it making me roll my eyes so hard that like I see the back of my skull. And yet here, I loved it and it made me laugh. And I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, the rules were established the moment Renfield chops a guy's arms off with a serving plate, and when he impales two other dudes with a third dude's arms. Like, at that point, you go, all right, this is over the top. I don't think they're going to need really a magic research montage at the Vatican to pick up the spell they need.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, this movie is just a lot of fun, is really what it boils down to. It knew what it wanted to be. Like, Chris McKay knew the film he wanted to make, and he put the right people in the right roles, and he went for a tone, and it just works. Is it the best movie I've seen this year? No. But it is a lot of fun as long as you can get over the barrier to entry, which is the gore level. I think that's the one thing that's gonna stop some people from either enjoying it or just exposing certain people to it. Because then there's people that are sensitive to that, or like,
yeah, no, I get it. Like my tolerance to gore is very specific. Like this kind of gore doesn't bother me, but like anything that has trypophobia or certain specific types of body horror, anything that involves loss of body autonomy in horror really gets me.
Yeah.
So like,
well, and it's one of the things with this movie is the gore in it is, the gore level is high, but it's so over the top and cartoonish, both in its look and its tone. And I do think, and this was a note that I had, was you could have done it without the fountains of blood and that kind of stuff. You could have made the movie without that. But I don't think, like, I think it's lesser without that. I think something would feel off. Like, it would feel like, no, they should have just gone over the top. They should have really amped that up. It felt a little toothless without that, like, just ridiculous level of gore to it.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And like the ridiculousness of it being so cartoonish, it's like it's the same way the wounds, the blood, the gore happens. Like a guy gets his face ripped off at some point. And I know as a kid that would have freaked me the hell out because I immediately think, well, what's going to happen to him later? How does that heal? Whatever. But it's also nice to have like someone get his face off in a Nicolas Cage movie. I don't know if that was an intentional reference. If so, well done.
Yes.
But it's the same thing. Like I see this, and it's the same way that you're watching Tom and Jerry, and a piano lands on Tom. You don't go, I hope he's okay. It's like, no, it's a cartoon. You get that the violence is part of the humor here.
It's sort of like the violence level in this is like if the cartoon Metalocalypse were done in live action. It's that level of like crazy.
I'm sure there's a version of me somewhere that knows what you're talking about and agrees.
I
don't know what that is.
Metalocalypse was a cartoon about a fake heavy metal band that was like the 9th largest economy in the world was this band. And it had ridiculous levels of like over the top, fans getting chopped up by stuff. It was an Adult Swim cartoon. Ask Amy about it. She could tell you. Our mutual friend.
Okay,
Amy.
no, I've seen plenty of clips of this on YouTube.
So
I know what this is.
Yeah, if that were live action, that's what like the level of Renfield is. Is what it and so
see, I have become the version of me that knows what you're talking about and agrees.
We slipped that barrier.
I've gone through my whole character arc. Yes.
But yeah, as long as that is something that you can deal with, I think you'll have a lot of fun with this movie because it is just crazy. Like this has the right levels of crazy to it, not just from Cage, but from everybody. Cage is deliciously over the top, and he's just his facial expressions. He's bugging his eyes out. He's doing all that. He has the great scene with the support group, and it's funny because that happened. And then they cut to, at the end of the movie, while they're doing the wrap-up of everything, he's back in the support group, and I saw just the background character, and I'm like, wait a minute, that guy died earlier, and then he's talking to the leader of the group, and they go through the whole thing of, like, giving us the 2-word explanation of, like, well, you brought us back.
With the Dracula blood, having seen things we can't unsee. And
yes, I've got a couple of sound clips, and one of those is definitely one of them. That guy was great. I loved his performance was wonderful. Earlier on, when he talks about when Renfield mentions Dracula gaining his full power, and his reaction to that is like, yeah, that's a crazy way to put. I don't know why you would say it like that, but yes, his full power. Like, I loved that. Unsung hero of that particular group of characters from the support group is Carol. Yes.
For trying to tell her story and never being able to. It's so good.
She has the perfect amount of sarcasm that second time
her
Renfield
timing
runs
is
in.
Yes.
It's
well,
so
I guess
good.
fuck Carol's moment again.
Ever getting to do a full share, like,
and it's part of her problem is that she's not.
Yes. It's one of those moments
comedy.
that is good comedy. That is, like you said earlier, there's those moments of pure genius in this thing, and And then when I found out that, you know, Chris McKay had directed the Lego Batman movie, it fit, because that movie has a lot of those too.
It fit like two bricks together.
But yeah, it's go ahead.
It does feel like, going back to what you were saying about like everybody like doing. It feels like everyone in the cast got a call and they said, "Oh, it's a Nicolas Cage movie. Am I the Nicolas Cage?" And in a way, they kind of all were.
Everyone working on this understood the assignment 100%. There isn't any.
Yes.
Nobody feels out of place.
Including the part that they were going to be in a Nicolas Cage movie.
Yep. Yes. Absolutely.
And that's important.
It's very important. I did capture some audio. I want to play a couple of these because they're good. I always get Nick Cage laughing because he does some of my favorite laughs. And so I'll play the shorter version of it. But it's so good. It's him, and I think it's Teddy. Yeah, it's Teddy laughing with him in the hospital set. And it's just
After...
like nobody laughs ridiculously like Nicolas Cage. I'm sorry.
But I do love how Ben Schwartz like loses sincerity in his laugh as he's going.
Yes.
Where he goes like, haha, this is funny, to like getting nervous.
Yep.
So good.
It really, really is. Let's see. This was, I don't ask for something. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't ask for much, Renfield. You're just the blood of a few dozen innocent people.
And what was it? Nuns. A set of nuns.
A handful of nuns.
A handful of nuns. A busload of cheerleaders.
Wait, it's a couple of tourists, a loving couple, a handful of nuns, a busload of cheerleaders.
And then he sees all of them.
That's his fast feed. It's so good.
And just the reaction when the bus goes by. Are you kidding me? It was so, but I liked that. That felt like a very Cage moment of I don't ask for much. He's just like chewing on whatever prosthetic they put in his mouth. He's just chewing on that thing. Let's see. This one just labeled Dracula.
I work for Dracula.
What?
Dracula?
Oh, it was her reaction, I think, that did it for me. What?
That's the thing. Like, she did a good job.
Yeah,
she did a very good job with the character.
Let's see. Back to something.
And thank you for using Dracula blood to bring us all back to life.
Just thank you.
You didn't keep the part where he describes like knowing things you can't unknow. Like, because he does such a good job.
Yeah, I did, but
you got it.
I cut it up because I didn't want to have like one long one. It was this.
Oh, it's that if any of them is worth it, is this one, because like he goes from optimism to a harrowed husk of a man very well.
Yeah. So we've heard him say, thank you for using the Dracula blood, and then followed by,
if it wasn't for you, none of us would have learned what it's like to come back from the other side, having seen things that you can't unsee, and know things that you can't unknow.
His journey through that sentence is just astonishing.
He did a whole character arc in there.
Really, he had as much character growth and arc as anyone else in the movie in that one sentence.
Yeah, in that one revelation of a sentence.
Teddy being completely useless. Here's where that really happened. It's right at the beginning. It's when he drives off from Renfield, and he gets to the traffic stop where they're doing the DUI check, and then he just gives up and he tries to drive around it, and they shoot out his tires. So he just hops out of his car with an armload of bales of cocaine, and he just yells,
I got a prescription for this shit!
As he's running away.
And
so
using cocaine to try to slow down the cops running after him for having cocaine.
It's so ridiculous. He hits the one in the face. It was good. And that cop, Aquafina's partner, had this gem of a line as they walk into the Mexican restaurant.
Can you order me a number 3? The toilet just ordered a number 2.
I have never
it's
heard,
gross, but
it's gross, and I've never heard it phrased that way, which is, I think, why I captured it, because I've never heard the toilet ordered. It was weird.
Listen, if you want to get rid of a character for an entire scene, that is a good sentence to use to get rid of a character for an entire scene.
It kind of is, actually. And it worked, because now we have no reason to question why he's not in that entire action sequence. Oh.
Sorry, no, I swallowed a bug.
Unintentionally.
What other way is there to...
And she just gets cut off. That was what made that joke like 10 times better, is the reaction to it.
Was that Carol again?
Yes, that was Carol.
I love Carol in those scenes.
I do too. I'm going to play that audio one more time.
She's the most human.
She really is. But I want to play that one more time, because listen to it again and tell me you don't hear a little Hugh Grant in there.
Sorry, no, I swallowed a bug.
Unintentionally.
What other way is there to...
Like, not a dead on, not trying to do a Hugh Grant impression, but like in that direction, in that kind of...
I would need to be more of a Hugh Grant connoisseur, I think, to pick it up the way you pick it up.
All right, fair enough. And last one, okay. I have one problem with this movie. Only one, but it's a big one.
Fair enough. Oh.
There was entirely too much ska hate in this film. I cannot abide the hating on ska. I'm sorry.
Okay, no. Play your clip and we shall talk.
And it was this is the clip I got.
That's a huge oversimplification of ska's innovative contribution to music. Oh my God, who am I?
Because of the way she brings that up, is like that should have been her red flag for why this guy was a terrible person to be in a relationship with, us, because of how much he liked ska. And it cracked me up, because it came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting that.
It's the who am I?
Yes.
Listen.
They make the joke, because right before that is the joke. Isn't that the thing that's like 99% horns? Yeah, that's what I thought. And then that's when she breaks into that's an oversimplification. Like, I do enjoy ska, and I think it's because ska music for me, the thing about it is it is infectious energy in music, and it is some ska songs I have heard are some of the angriest, most upsetting, like upset lyrics, like angry, young person lyrics, but you're happy and like bouncing along to it, because it's just that like infectiously happy kind of open A string type music. There's something about it that just gets me going.
Yeah, there's this meme on the internet that I think is probably one of the most accurate scientific facts that's ever been observed by any type of sociologist, psychologist, or psychoanalyst ever, is that ska music is the music that plays in a 6-year-old's mind when he discovers he's got an extra cheese stick.
Yeah, no, that's pretty accurate. That's how I feel every time I listen to it. It's like ska music or Weird Al Yankovic will immediately put me into a good mood. You cannot. I believe that you cannot stay in a bad mood if you listen to Weird Al. At some point, like, it will just overtake you, and you'll at least break to being like, I'm okay now. Because his music is so, and I think it's because his brand of humor was never negative punching down humor.
No, it's always very clever because of his use of lyrics. I think ska is one of those things. There's an analogy that kind of escapes me, but ska is one of those things that it will make you happy if you're down and you're in the right mindset for it. But it can make you angry if you're happy, if you're in the wrong mood for it. Like, if you're having a really good time in the mosh pit at the heavy metal concert, and then the band goes, and this is our tribute to ska, you may start getting violent.
I suppose.
The wrong kind of violent.
I suppose. I think I'm such a sucker for a band with a horn section that, and another part of it is like I grew up right in the middle of the third wave of ska and the revival of it, and when it became really popular in the U.S., that it sort of, there's a nostalgia factor to it for me. So that's when like they were making fun of him, like, come on, quit making fun of, quit poking on ska. But it was funny in the context of this movie. Like I found the jokes great, where they're sitting there listening to it. The guys are cutting the drugs and they're listening to ska, and then the music goes out, and like they had the ska lyrics spray painted on the side of the building.
I'm gonna go off on a limb, and I'm not a ska psychologist, but I'm gonna assume that the kind of people who enjoy ska would take the jokes about ska from this movie and enjoy them. Like sometimes, like there's certain fandoms that are cool with what they are a fan of being mocked because it is so good natured and good spirited.
Sure.
Yes, and Amy nails it. Like a psychologist.
Mm-hmm. Psychologist. All right.
A psychologist. Yes. Yeah.
You get one free.
I am not one of those.
You get one for free. I will allow that. But yeah, that I couldn't help but not get, that was such a good joke in the beginning of the movie with just her reaction. Oh God, who am I? That it killed me. This movie was a lot of fun. I'm so glad I finally got to watch it. It was torture waiting until now to do it, but it was worth waiting to do it. Because
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It was just a fun ride. It was absolutely bonkers in all the best ways, as a good Nicolas Cage movie should be. Look
at it from my point of view. Like as much as I sniped this movie from under you, and kept you from seeing it for so long, imagine if it wasn't good. And I had seen it once in theaters, which is already an investment that I would have regretted. But then I have to watch it a second time. So there was a bit of a gamble on my side.
It was a calculated risk. You made a calculated risk.
Yeah, the moment I saw those previews, I knew I felt very confident I was going to enjoy this.
It's kind of like there's another one that comes out or just came out, where it's Running with the Devil. Or no, that was an older one he did. What is this newer? Sympathy for the Devil is one that he just released. That looks like it's going to be kind of one of those crazy ones that could be a lot of fun, where he's playing a character just named The Passenger. And it's got Joel Kinnaman in it. It just looks like it's kind of one of those movies that's going to go all out for it. So not quite to the cartoony level that Renfield is, but I do think that that's going to be one of those movies where I saw the trailer for it and I was like, all right, I'm in. Like, it's, granted, I'm in for anything Nicolas Cage at this point. I've sort of planted my flag on that. But yeah, that's one that's coming up. I just enjoy Cage. I enjoy his movies. I shouldn't say never. I'm rarely bored with a Nicolas Cage movie. Some are rewatchable and much more enjoyable.
Some are unwatchable.
Some are ones that I'm glad I saw and I never need to watch again. But I'm rarely bored by anything he's doing, even when it's like Wicker Man and just, imminently memeable. And the whole, I always like to poke fun at any movie that comes out after the fact and tries to say it's a dark comedy when it clearly wasn't when they were shooting it. And I feel like Wicker Man is that movie for Nicolas Cage. Like, I don't feel like that was meant to be satire. And if it was extremely subtle in its dark comedy. He's done others that I think had that concept from the beginning because there's kind of a ridiculous nature to them. But there was something about that one that it just never hit me that way. But like I say, I'm just never bored by what he puts out, even when they're not.
Well, it circles back to what I was saying at the beginning about Nicolas Cage as an actor, is that every role he takes is a different painting on this part. So it's interesting because you know you're going to get something unique and different, not just you're going to get something different because it's that actor, but even within the repertoire of that actor, it's going to be different from one role to the other.
Mm-hmm.
So it's entertaining on a meta level, which you don't get with many actors.
That's true. And like for him to be able to play, you know, when he plays himself in something like Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, and then he turns around.
I need to see that.
Oh, you do. It's just, it's so much fun. Like that, if you enjoyed this, you'll like Unbearable Weight. It's that level of kind of fun, and it's very self-referential. He's playing a fictionalized version of himself, and it's just great. But like he brings something all the time, and it's that it's the dedication or the I'm gonna bring my A game every time, and I'm gonna bring.
Oh my god!
energy.
I just realized I did see Knowing, but like a trauma victim, I decided not to.
I always forget which one is Knowing and which one is Next, because they came out within like a year of each other or 2 years of each other, and it was in that period where his hair was trying to become sentient.
See, I need to see Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, and I need to see Willy's Wonderland.
Of the two, personally, I liked Unbearable Weight a lot more. Willy's Wonderland felt like a good, and I haven't covered it for the show yet. It's going to happen at some point, but it felt to me, just quick review of it, was like it felt like a good idea that needed a little more time to bake. It just got repetitive for me, but you know, at the same time, I know people that just love it. So that's the thing.
I realized I haven't seen Color Out of Space. Man, I am dropping the ball on my horror cage.
Color Out of Space is probably to this point my favorite Lovecraftian film.
That's what people keep telling me, and I mean to see it, but
and like I understand,
I'm so behind on media.
Yeah, I understand that bar isn't super high to clear because like Lovecraft is so difficult to adapt, in my opinion. But that one seemed to get the right feel for me.
I have a theory that Lovecraft is not difficult to adapt. I just think that a lot of screenwriters and directors aren't smart enough to adapt it, and studios aren't brave enough to finance the adaptations that would work.
Now,
because
that last point, I would agree with you 100% on.
The immediate problem you have is these are going to be stories that don't end well.
Mm-hmm.
So already that's a problem. People like to have a nice little tidy conclusion. And then, like, and when I say not smart enough, I'm not saying they're not smart enough. I think they're missing the point of what a Lovecraft story is. But I mean, this is like an essay for another day. It's just Lovecraft ain't that deep. It ain't that complicated.
No, I do think the difficult part in adapting it is that film is a visual medium, and so much of what makes a Lovecraftian or cosmic horror story work is that don't see what's going on. You have to kind of fill in the blanks yourself. And one of the things that Color Out of Space for me did was it gave just enough visual while also letting you piece a lot of it together in your head that some don't. Because what ends up happening for me, a lot of the Lovecraft adaptations that I've seen end up veering into the camp end of things. Reanimator being probably the one that is the most in that direction. And, you know, it happens.
It's a fun movie, but like you don't feel the dread of a Lovecraft story in there.
No,
you feel more dread of a Lovecraft story from The Thing.
Yes, that is still probably the most Lovecraftian not Lovecraft adaptation that I've seen. Is The Thing. It's just fantastic. But no, Renfield was great. thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for being here to talk with me about it, and I will forgive you for making me wait 6 months to see it. It was worth the wait, and it was worth it to have this conversation because it's always fun to talk to you.
Absolutely.
It's fun too. It's interesting because we've done, I think this is your third time now, right? Because we did Blade Runner 2049.
Oh no, we did Blade Runner 2049. Sorry, I talk about Blade Runner 2049 so often. Like all my monologues, all my 3-hour-long monologues about this movie blend in together.
But we talked about that, which is a legacy sequel. This sort of fits a legacy sequel in a lot of ways, and I kind of like movies that do what this one does, which is like. So okay, before I can't let you go without asking you, because you, as a writer, I know that you like to create your stories and create your characters, but do you think that, how do you feel about something like this, which takes established known characters like Dracula, like Renfield, but put them in a new situation or take them and transplant them into something? Not necessarily. It's sort of like taking, Sherlock Holmes and setting it present day, right? Taking it out of Victorian England and setting it present day, whether it was Sherlock or whether it was, what was the one that was on CBS, the Weekly Pursuit. Anyway, like doing something like that, or taking these, here's characters of Dracula, Renfield. People have heard these stories for forever, and it's been adapted how many times to different films. But taking that and sort of expanding it and telling you a different story with them. Instead of telling the same story or adapting a known work, taking a character and inserting them into something new.
Well, how can I say? I would qualify these kind of things as elevated fan fiction. Okay. In the sense that, like, we're very recently, like a few days ago, we got The Last Voyage of Demeter came out, which takes a paragraph, half a chapter out of Bram Stoker's Dracula, saying, "Hey, he was on the ship, and when the ship got to port, people were dead. All right, fine." And they decided we're going to make an entire movie out of that. It's interesting because it does, like, it's basically telling the story of this vignette, this little part of the story, and expanding upon it. And it's the same thing for Renfield. Like, Renfield has his role, does what he's meant to do. He is the cog that needs to be in that machinery that is Bram Stoker's Dracula. And then someone decides, well, what if we do more with that cog? Like, where does this cog come from? Where does he go? And that is inherently, that's fan fiction. Now, it's fan fiction that respects the material more than when, like, people are asking themselves, well, what if Anakin Skywalker were to date Kenobi? It's like, it doesn't take liberties as much as it takes what's established and builds upon it. But it is still fan fiction-ish too. Now, do I mind? Not really. As long as it's done well. Like, telling a good story is a good story, where you take your building blocks to do it. Going back to the idea of a Lego movie, if you buy a Lego set and you build something and then you add pieces, it's still cool. It doesn't stop it from being cool, even if you had a starting point with instructions that got you 90% of the way.
Yeah, I like it when, as long as there is respect to the character that you're utilizing, right? Like, one of the reasons why that micro budget Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey movie that came out earlier this year I had no interest in was because it just felt like, oh, we're just doing this because it's going to generate clicks based on the name. We're going to do a horror movie starring Winnie the Pooh. I don't know if you ever even heard of this or not, but it was...
Oh, no, I've heard of it. And, like, even amongst the horror community, like, there's a few people say, there's gory bits, so that's kind of fun. But even in, like, the horror community, it's regarded as garbage.
Yeah,
it's not.
And for me, it's because, like, you're just doing that for a shock value, whereas something like this movie, for instance, is at least trying to, like, well, here's kind of a fun story about, like, what if the end of Dracula, him and Renfield have to disappear and they have to globetrot and, like, move around all the time as he's trying to nurse Dracula back to health. I just think it was kind of it's a fun, interesting story, and I enjoy when somebody goes into and plays around in the sandbox of kind of a story that is already established, as long as they're respectful of sort of what's been there. It's like you said, it's not the what if Anakin and Obi-Wan dated, but more of like telling us the story of Rogue One, right? Because Rogue One, in terms of Star Wars, we had heard about, they had to get these plans for the Death Star, and they got them, and people died getting them out, whatever. But then we got
that's the second Death Star. That's a mistake that a lot of people make, and I'm not going to start on this, but because I can go for 2 hours.
Well, okay,
but like the whole a bunch of Bothans died to get those plans. That's the second Death Star.
No, I understand.
First Death Star is just we got them.
I understand that, like the Bothans, but that wasn't the story of Rogue One. Or was it kind of what I'm alluding to is she got the plans. Well, now we get to find out where those plans came from. How did she get them in the first place? For me, that's a fun thing to explore, even though you know how the story ends.
She does tell us how they got the plans. They were beamed to her ship.
Mm-hmm.
As per Leia's dialogue in the very first scenes of episode 4, they were beamed to her ship.
Yeah. Which
I have anger issues about Rogue One.
See, okay, that's somewhere where you and I will diverge, because I liked Rogue One quite a bit. So, yeah.
I think a lot of actors did very well with very little, and good special effects. Nice fight scenes.
To a point, also, that movie got a lot of reshoots and changed a lot from what it was originally going to be to what it ended up being. But I still think that it's some of the better storytelling that Star Wars has done in film in the last 10 years, 15 years.
I will not rob you of this with a thorough deconstruction.
We can do that some other time. All right?
I did. We could, and it would just be you being angry at me being angry at a movie for about an hour and a half, and it's not pleasant for anyone.
I mean, you never know. We'll see. Next time we're sitting down somewhere having some drinks, maybe it'll happen. Who knows? But
I'm gonna get kicked out of a bar again.
But no, this was a lot of fun, and this is a fun movie to watch. And Nicolas Cage is the gift that keeps on giving, which is why I celebrate him every year on this show. And he keeps putting out like 4 and 5 movies a year, so I'm never going to run out of material either.
No, and you know what's great? And it kind of hit me, like, he's just going to get older and weirder as the years go by. Like, the Nicolas Cage future is bright.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's so much more to mine from his back catalog, too, that I haven't gotten to yet. I mean, there's stuff. So this is a lot of fun. What are you working on right now? Because I know that you're between seasons of Aquilo. But kind of just let people know like what you're working on now and where maybe they can find some of that. You got any books coming out soon or anything like that?
No, I don't have books coming out. I've got a short story coming out in an anthology whose name escapes me right now, but I'll make some noise about when it comes out. It's coming out in October for Halloween. Actually, I might have 2 short stories. I don't know about the second one yet.
Okay.
I might have, and so I've got those things kind of brewing, but those are already done and sort of submitted. So I'm kind of waiting for feedback. I've finished a manuscript that I'm also waiting for feedback. So I have a lot of things, a lot of fires in the iron, but nothing ready yet. While we are on hiatus for Aquilo, that only means that I'm working on the next Aquilo thing. So I don't want to give any dates, but Aquilo listeners should keep an eye open in the next month or so for some early teasers and information about a between season special episode that we've got in the works. And that sounds like it's going to be a fun one before we go back for season 7.
Those are always fun.
Eventually I'll have... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just... Those mid-season episodes, those between-season episodes are always fun. I enjoy
they're good because I get to finish the story. Meanwhile, like seasons of Aquilo are... like, they're both a season-long story and part of a larger multi-season storyline. Anyways, but we do have the 7th season that's going to come out probably in late. Yeah, Fear Forged is the anthology I already have stuff out for. There's another anthology I submitted a story to in the last few weeks.
Okay.
And I can't remember the name of it. I think it's a haunted house thing that looks very interesting. It's basically 12. It's a house with 12 rooms. Each room has a story told by a different horror author, and it is, what is it called? House of Haunts. So it's 12 rooms, 12 ghosts, 12 stories.
Okay.
And it's going to come out close to Halloween.
Excellent. So Fear Forged.
No, it's not the same one.
And House of Haunts.
So yeah, I have stories in the 2 first Fear Forged anthologies.
Okay.
And I'm gonna have a story in House of Haunts from Parla Ghost Press. If I'm also going to be in the next year or so, there should be some news coming out about the 3rd book for God in the Shed.
Very cool.
And hopefully some other projects that I've been working really hard on in the last few months should hopefully I'll be able to get out to more people if they get picked up, or I can find a medium of publication for them.
Excellent.
So nothing cool immediate to announce, but the future is dark and gloomy and cool.
Awesome. And in the meantime, if you haven't listened to Ake Willow, go to akewillow.com or search for Ake Willow in your podcasters and catch up on the 6 seasons that are out there, because it's a fantastic show. JF writes and our friend Amy narrates and produces. And it's one of the better storytelling podcasts I've ever had the chance to listen to. And I don't say that because you guys are friends of mine. I genuinely just love the show.
This is gonna sound about in the same line of thought, but like my I was having dinner with my family yesterday, and my dad even said this is like your big work, and it does. Ake Willow is, I think once it's over, will probably be my magnum opus until another big thing comes along.
It's really good. It's really good. So definitely check that out. And if you enjoy this show and this kind of conversation like I'm having tonight, and you want to catch it live, you can do that Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, twitch.tv/TVsTravis. It comes out as a podcast on Wednesdays. You can check it out on YouTube if you want to. That gets posted there. There's a video version that goes up there, usually going to hit on Thursdays. You can support the show at patreon.com/WYHS, or find all the stuff that I'm working on at tvstravis.com, or any of the socials as tvstravis. JF, do you avoid the social media as much as possible, or do you dabble in there occasionally?
No, I can be found on Instagram. I can be found on Threads. I can be found on Blue Sky. You can find me on Facebook. You can even find me on Twitter, although I don't go to Twitter quite as much because my feed is just nonsense now. I want to complain and say, oh, it's all evil fake. No, it just feels like it's random at this point.
Kind of, yeah.
So it's really hard to go there just to read things. Like I'll go once a day or so just to check 5 messages or notifications from friends. But if you're there and you message me or you at me, I'll pick it up and I'll respond. Same for Instagram or Facebook or any other social media.
So just look for JF Dubois and you'll find him.
Yeah, some variation of me.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
An incarnation.
When you get more word on the next project that might be coming out, and you want to come on and talk about that and pimp
I will bother all my podcasting friends. You
Perfect.
will hate me.
No, you anytime, because it's always a good conversation with you, and you bring stuff to the conversation that I don't think about, because you view things very different from I do. So it makes for good conversation. I enjoy it. Whether it's, going on for 3 hours about Blade Runner or Attack the Block, which we had a lot of fun watching. And
they're making a sequel, and I hope I hope it's Attack the Cell Block, and it's in a prison, and because the end of the movie is Boyega going to jail.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes sense.
Yeah,
it fits.
It does.
Like the movie could start like on the eve of when he's supposed to be released, and boom, aliens again.
Yes. Oh, it'd be great. So definitely, anytime you want to come back, we'll have you back on this show. Thank you so much. And as I like to say, ending all of my shows, remember to enjoy your movies and let's be excellent to each other. This has been Wait You Haven't Seen.
And then he crashed into a DUI checkpoint, committed 10 felonies, and not to mention FUing a room full of cops.
You FU me all the time.
Fuck you, Kyle!
Ah, fuck you, Kyle.